Hey, welcome back to the Superhero Show. Now, last week we asked you to write in and tell us what you thought of Jessica Jones, the new Netflix series. And we're going to spend the whole episode discussing what we think, discussing what you think. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, boy oh boy did we get some feedback.
Yeah, loads of it. The printer has been
bad,
busy.
indifferent.
Yeah, some of it off topic. We probably won't read that.
No. So what were your initial thoughts now? We both finished it last night, didn't we?
So I kind of tore through it, finished it last night. I think it is a good show with some good episodes, but unlike a lot of Netflix shows where you just crave the next episode and you tear through it, it feels more like one of the series that's been on network TV that I binge watch on Netflix. And when it's compressed together, you kind of realise there's kind of a few pacing problems. I think that's the thing more than ever. Like, while I like her and I like a lot of the characters in it, I like the villain, it's more the structure of it that I have a problem with. I think it could have been leavened by having some kind of standalone episodes, some episodes that weren't to do with Kilgrave early on, but it means that it has this false ending around episode 9-10, and then it just kind of, like, I think it's just kind of a bit like Jenga. You pull away a few blocks and at the end, it's looking back, it looks a bit messy.
Yeah, no, I agree. It felt to me like 8 episodes stretched out to 13. And because Kilgrave was the through line in terms of the villain and the plot, it did get very repetitive with his character in terms of, like, it felt like they know people are binge watching this, so therefore each episode they felt like they needed to have 2 or 3 scenes of him doing some mind control. We get the point after about 5 episodes. And equally, I tell you how serious that was for me, that episode 9 thing. I texted a friend of mine and we were saying, she said, where are you up to? And I said, I'm on episode 9, it's really good, so I've only got 1 to go. And she's like, no, you've got, I literally thought it was the end, and I hadn't figured that it was 13. And so everything after that feels a little bit like anticlimax.
Yeah, it does, definitely, because I think early on in the show there's lots of things they see to make that feel like the climax, like her repeating street names of her home, obviously her past and family being a big blank space in the story. And she literally returns home, and she goes into this, like, what appears to be a trap, and it just feels like a dramatic climax. And then it's just messy. You're back in New York.
Yeah.
Lots of things open up. There's an episode I watched last night, 11, I think, where it's just a bunch of flashbacks that kind of part fill in her past, but kind of raise more questions than they answer as well. Yeah.
And equally, what you said about, like, I would like to see more of her detecting, whether it was standalone storyline of the week episodes or whether the first 3 or 4 episodes we got to know her a little bit and see her weaknesses and her deficiencies and, like, you know, realise there's something wrong with this woman but get to know her before the mystery's unravelled as to why she's behaves in that way, rather than it's right from the beginning.
Kilgrave stuff drops
episode 1. So I didn't feel like we got a sense of her before, and I guess part of that is because she is defined by him now, but I would have liked to see more of her doing her job, and, like, some cool detecting work as well, you know, like, you know, shows like Sherlock doing things like that. She wasn't really doing much of that PI actual work.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that. I guess that's how they're pitching it, is at this point in her life she is defined by the trauma he's left her with, and we'll get onto a comparison with Daredevil in a bit. But Daredevil held strong and only showed you Kingpin, I think, at the end of the 4th episode. So you had, you know, it was a presence, and I felt like that show had a few other villains that he could fight and tackle. Yes, ultimately they might have been henchmen or the strings were being pulled by Kingpin, but there were different threats there. Whereas this was relentlessly Kilgrave. As good as I actually quite like Kilgrave quite a lot. But
Well, it was, I mean, for me, I didn't really think about this until last night when it got to the end, because, you know, you're watching it so quickly and you're trying to keep up, is that it's actually done what we've been asking for the last year. It's the first Marvel horror story. It's the first horror superhero tale. And it's done quite well. I mean, it was frightening, it was really violent, and it also, I think, it was the most serious of the Marvel stories so far, in that it really dealt with real world issues in a mature and sensitive and quite challenging ways. So you've got abuse, you've got trauma, you've got post-traumatic stress, rape, all these things. I thought it really cleverly dealt with them.
Addiction, obsession, lots of very strong psychological themes.
Yeah, date rape. It was just, I thought it really smartly did all that without being exploitative, which is hard to do.
Yeah. I think
If I'd known that those were the themes going in, and we spoke about the fact, we know what the Purple Man does, and if you read the comics, but if I'd known it was going to go that hard, I would have said to myself, that doesn't sound like the right kind of thing to be doing with a superhero character. But actually, it really was. It felt like it was.
Yeah. Talking about, I think it's a really good point you make about it being a horror story. What do you think about the level of violence? Because towards the end, it really ramps up, and there's some particularly grisly things later on with people's arms being severed, things that people are doing to themselves,
Yeah, the
people
shears.
impaling themselves.
Yeah.
Too much, or
It's like a good version of The Happening. You know what? Because I will never say violent. Well, we're big fans of violence, you and I.
yeah,
Can't get enough of it. It just felt a bit grating. It got a bit repetitive, I thought. Like I said before, I felt like I got the point early on in proceedings, and it was just, and maybe if they were spaced out, if I was watching it over 13 weeks, but just watching it all in a row, I think it did get a bit too much. But I just felt like it was making the same point over and over again, rather than, the violence bring anything new to proceedings.
yeah. I feel like we're saying something really negative, but we do like it.
Yeah.
I do like lots of aspects of it.
Kristen Ritter was really good. Again, it dealt with all these serious issues, but to have an actress that's got kind of this sense of humour underpinning her performance and this sardonic delivery, it made it palatable. Like we were going through this with her, and it kept it light in some places when it could have gotten really dark. So I was really impressed with her.
What do you think about this? Actually, obviously prominent female lead, but there's lots of other prominent female characters in the show.
Yeah.
Her friend, who obviously becomes Hellcat, Trish.
Yeah.
And obviously Robin Wright's character, not Robin Wright character, Carrie-Anne Moss is turning into Robin Wright in that show.
Yeah.
From House of Cards.
Right, okay.
I was just watching this going, have watched House of Cards? Her lawyer friend as well.
Yeah. Well, it was very progressive in that respect, in that there were so many strong female leads in it. It dealt with a gay relationship in just a normal way, and that it wasn't underlying. They weren't making a big deal out of it. Though it felt very progressive on that front. So, the fact that the divorce was just a boring subplot. It had nothing
It
to do
was
with
incredibly boring.
and it kept coming, and obviously they were trying to make it pay off, but it was just.
It doesn't go anywhere.
Again, it's filler, and I felt that got repetitive, and the pushy child star mum. Yes, it was, eventually that was to show that Trish herself had been abused, but it felt like it was making the same point. Every character.
Everyone is damaged. We're all damaged in our own special ways.
It just felt like it was over-egging the pudding, and it was just it was another subplot that wasn't quite necessary.
Yeah. I also felt, positive, but the other thing that I thought was weird is like having Jessica be the person that kills Luke Cage's wife just came across as a weird contrivance to me.
Yeah, there were a few contrivances in it.
But that one, I find it just really niggling because, obviously in the comics they have a relationship. I would assume that's something they're going to explore. The series ends with there being this connection between them. They're bound together because they're similar. But he's always going to know that she is, even though she was controlled and he's being controlled, she was the woman who killed his wife. Like, you're not going to forget that.
I agree, and some of the stuff with Will Simpson I found was a bit contrived as well. It was too coincidental. A positive though. Let's do some more positive.
It's easy to focus on things like that. Yeah.
I like the way they dealt with the superpowers as well. I thought it was very subtle and believably brought in. So by the end, you're kind of seeing this as a real world show, and yet she can fly. Pretty much, and I was like, that's really smart the way they've just spaced it out, and the stuff with it brought in Luke a little bit early. I felt so that her powers didn't seem as. I think it would have been good to have her be the only heroic character, superheroic character.
Because you almost see his, and they're almost more outlandishly done because she flies off camera, where you see someone try to stab him in the neck, and it doesn't work, and you're like, oh, I kind of want to see more of that.
Yeah. But so I think it was grounded in the real world in a really smart way, which makes it a little bit jarring when they do talk about the incident in New York.
We've got some good feedback on that later.
Okay.
But with Luke Cage.
Yeah.
Did you like the scene where he turned up in her flat with a buzzsaw and tried to like slit open his abs? How do you know where the power outlets were? It was dark. Like, it's a bit of an awkward scene to go in with that.
It was.
I did quite like it though, because I always thought it was.
I guess it's.
I always like bringing power tools into the bedroom.
I guess they were trying to give it a wow moment, but yeah, I agree. That was kind of, again, it felt a bit contrived.
It's just like it just appears in her flat. What are you doing? You've broken in and you've brought your own power tools.
Why have you got a power tool?
I did like the scene that I thought it was quite cool.
Claire Temple in the final episode. Like,
oh yeah.
Like, why is our final episode as much about her as any other character when she's not been in this show?
Well, it's those last few episodes really lose their focus.
Bring her in an episode earlier. Don't bring her in the finale.
Well, I think the show crescendos with the house.
Yeah.
And then they're like, let's set up a bunch of stuff. The origins of Jessica's powers becomes a plot point later on.
Yeah.
They fill in the background, her relationship with Trish, and then Claire as well as kind of joining Fabric.
Yep.
And also setting Luke off to do something.
Yeah, it's a bit. It makes those last 2 or 3 episodes a bit of an anticlimax.
Yeah. Anyway,
should we do some feedback?
Pro feedback.
Yeah.
So I've got a bunch of pro emails from viewers. Ryan has written in. Ryan said, "I thought Jessica Jones was the best Marvel show to date. It captures the essence of the earliest comics. I think it does that. Lots of really good moments, like her doing detective work on the toilet. Like that moment a lot. The noir tone and atmosphere were done to perfection. The way the series tackled very realistic topics and themes were all tackled in a very mature manner that doesn't feel forced or contrived," which is what you said.
Agreed.
Also, let's just pick up on that noir tone and atmosphere.
Yep.
They really do that, especially with the music. I think the music really kind of seals that.
Yep.
What else? How else successful do you think that is overall? Do you think it?
What, noir?
Yeah.
I felt like it really was like a hard-boiled detective show. Yeah, I thought that was a really positive.
Cool style.
Yeah.
Alex has also written in, "This year I've liked the Marvel Netflix shows much more than the movies they've released this year. I think it's because the audience see much more fallout from the heroes and villains' actions."
Yep.
Because that's what the shows allow, isn't it? That running time. You can delve into consequence.
And we even see fallout from the film characters' actions with that episode where that woman's trying to kill Jessica because her mother was killed in the incident. Yeah, which was that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
But again, it's just a bit jarring sometimes when this is played, so serious, and then that's all being played for laughs almost.
Finally, Simon's written in, "While I think Daredevil is the better of the two shows, I still think the new addition to the MCU is incredible. Daredevil was focused on power and greed, where Jessica Jones focuses on addiction and obsession, which adds a different feel to each series and gives its own identity."
Definitely.
Thank you, Simon.
Definitely. You're giving me negative, which I don't think is very fair, because I always feel like I'm being the negative one.
I can take one.
Outie from Finland says, "Jessica Jones is definitely a good show. I'm just not sure if it's a great show."
I think that's kind of what we're saying.
Yeah. Jessica Jones suffers from some weird pacing and storytelling problems, some of which are very comic booky and some are very TV showy. The biggest problem with Jessica Jones, however, is that it's chaotic as hell. The focus of the story constantly seems to get side-railed, and those side rails rarely lead anywhere, which sends the show stumbling back a few steps to figure out where it was supposed to be going. This also leads to some fairly frustrating pacing issues where, from time to time, the show goes from full throttle to almost completely inert at the drop of a hat. The show excels at psychological drama. It gives you a very real look at what it's like to live with the kind of trauma that, like it or not, defines you as a person.
I thought that's very good.
Yeah, very good.
Smart points.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that with the Will Simpson character, that he was all over the place. Like, they couldn't decide what to do with him. His story arc didn't make sense unless you maybe read the comics.
Again, that's one of those things that I feel is compounded by watching episodes back to back, because he just flip flops.
Yeah, you never.
And also, it's like this was just a random cop.
Yeah.
That Kilgrave selected. Again, contrivance.
Yeah, who happened to be a former super soldier.
Yeah.
It you never got a sense of who he was, and so his behaviour was quite confusing at times. And then this is from George, who says, "AKA 13 hours of my life I will never get back."
This is probably the most negative piece we got.
"I sincerely hope the fact that Luke Cage was in this does not mean his series will be drone in the same way. I stuck with the show through all 13 episodes, hoping it would get better, but it never did. Very anticlimactic. The show goes out of its way to not make her act like a superhero, only to have her defeat Kilgrave in a very superhero way in the final minutes." I guess, yeah, the neck break, the neck snap, that's becoming a thing, isn't it?
That's what superheroes do these days.
Yeah.
It's a cool thing. Yeah.
One other negative I'll say is, two of them actually. Don't bring Supermax into it and make us think we're going to get some great scenes in that prison and then not do it.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that. That was a huge thing. That was a huge thing.
Built that up, and I'm like,
and he's getting Supermax.
Another level stuff. Also, Robin was the worst character in the twin sister neighbour. That was a terrible character. And the stuff when she convinced everyone to go to the bar.
We can all be in a cult as well.
Yeah, and let's all go and attack Jessica. Like, that was all.
Yeah, it's weird.
Also,
there's a scene because I watched last night where like she's in the hospital and he turns everyone against it, and I thought, this could be the next 20 minutes. Oh, she walked straight out.
She pushed people into
she's got a bit of cut on the knee. I thought it was going to be like this whole sequence, like how do you escape from a hospital where everyone is turned against you. I just walked out the door. Being really harsh. So Luke Cage came up in that last email. Pretty prominent in the show, much more than I thought he was going to be. Definitely early on, and then comes back in at the end.
It was almost a team-up show at some point.
Obviously, going to get season 2 of Daredevil first, and then I think probably Luke Cage.
Yeah.
We should talk about him.
Yeah.
So we see Mike Coulter. First impression of Mike Coulter in that role.
Hot.
Very well.
Definitely would.
He's a good-looking man with a deep voice.
And a body.
And he says "Sweet Christmas" twice.
Does he?
Once post-coital, and once when he sees loads of weed.
All right, I like him a bit more now. I thought he was a little bit boring, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I didn't think they gave him enough cool things to do. I thought he was solid and fine, but it didn't make me think, I want to see 13 episodes of this guy on his own. He was very serious and for obvious reasons. But, it lacked kind of a hook that made me want to see more of him. It was cool.
You need more of a hook than he wears a motorbike helmet and he doesn't need to. Well, that's his thing, isn't it? Because he respects the law.
It's cool that he's indestructible, but then we didn't really see him doing enough cool things. So the jury's out for me on that, but I thought he made a really good foil to her. I thought they had great chemistry.
Yeah.
It was a very believable relationship.
They had good chemistry. I like the actor.
Yeah.
I hope the show gives him more intrigue. I assume it's going to go more into the experiment, because he talks about the experiment, which in the comics happens in prison. Be cool. Why is he saying so off the grid? I think those are interesting, those discussions they have early on the show where he's just like, being a hero puts a target on your back. No way am I doing this.
Yeah.
And then obviously in the comics he's known as hero for hire. What's that journey that takes him from this position of like where he's total seclusion to he's actually touting for work?
Yeah.
If that's the journey they take him on.
He's like a one-man A-team.
Yeah. But I thought he was good. So some feedback on Luke Cage specifically. Adam Woodhouse from Norwich. He's binged all 13 episodes and he loved it. The only thing I'm still somewhat in two minds about is whether or not we saw too much of Luke Cage. While I liked his role in the show and how he fit into the overall plot, I'm unsure if finding out what we did about his past and the extent of his powers at this stage of the Netflix universe needed to be done, especially given we were about to get a whole show with 13 episodes devoted to the character where this could have been explored. I would have had him appear less frequently and have a bit more of a mystery to him. Mm-hmm. I would say the one advantage to setting him up in Jessica Jones is, you save a bunch of episodes early on and you can just go straight into it.
You hit the ground running like a good sequel does.
Final bit on Luke Cage, and this is from Jake. Luke Cage really ruined the show for me. It's not that he's a bad character, I like him, but the stuff between him and Jess feels so out of place. The stuff they do together does not really matter. They don't need to show them having sex as much as they do. Same with the blonde and her guy. I just don't need side quests like Luke's in Jess Jones. Telling it like he is.
Yeah, but I guess I feel like you've got to have some lighter moments for these characters. Yeah. Like Jessica Jones is going through so much crap. Like, she's got let her have a hot dude.
Yeah, whose wife she killed.
Yeah, they find, I do think it develops the story. Their relationship does develop both of their characters.
I quite like the sex scenes early on as well, because there's the one where he turns up with the buzzsaw, and then that turns into quite like an erotic scene. And then there's one later on where it's just quite comedic shagging.
Yeah.
It's quite funny there.
Yeah, bit of slapstick.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Kilgrave then.
Yes.
Thoughts on Kilgrave, Daniel?
I think great villain with great powers for a villain. Like, you can really create really cool situations and instill a sense of paranoia into that show. Because early on, you're questioning the motivations from everyone. Even people like Jessica is really close to could be against it.
Yeah.
That's a great premise.
Yeah.
For a show. It's like that episode Ice of X-Files, or The Thing, where anyone could be out to get you.
Yeah.
And it becomes a cool plot point where you need to get to a 12-hour mark where it wears off, and then that gets extended. And that's a great twist at the end where it turns out that Luke is still being controlled. I like that twist. So I think he's a great villain with great powers to suit the kind of tone of the show. It's a big performance by David Tennant, because I think it has to be, and it plays into that character. There's someone who's just this mad stalker. So I didn't mind the big performance. I think it kind of works.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a big David Tennant fan. Like, for me, he's the guy you get when you can't get Michael Sheen.
Ooh!
Burn.
Ooh!
Apart from in Tron. Michael Sheen in Tron's no good either. But yeah, I agree. I think the character when he initially showed up was fantastic. I was so excited to see where that was going to go. But just like I've said a few times, I felt like it went on a little bit too long.
Overexposure, I think.
Yeah, and they kind of just dragged it out a little bit too long. His storyline. I thought Tennant did a good job actually of being charming and frightening all at the same time.
You spend a lot of time with him as a viewer, independent of the other characters. So unlike some films where you see the villain solely through the eyes of the hero. So for instance, Spectre, you get no scenes of Blofeld just on his own speaking to his henchmen. You get loads with Tennant. So you get to see the bits where he's just being really petulant and a bit crap.
Yeah.
So it almost takes away the fear aspect from him a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you see him just being a child, which is obviously part of the character's psychology, that he is this supreme manipulator. I think there's a good scene when he's in the tank and you think he's got Jess into a position where she feels he was completely abused as a kid. And again, it's just another lie.
Yeah.
And I quite like that. There's always another lie. There's always another...
I never really got a sense of what was driving him, though, which I feel like I got a much more of in Daredevil with Kingpin.
Yeah.
And I also got a little bit tired of them keep having to come up with excuses and reasons for not killing him or not taking him out. I found that a little bit tiresome. Yeah. And also a little bit frustrating, like... sometimes when people were acting strangely, I couldn't understand why other people weren't more suspicious, why Jessica wasn't. Yeah. By that point, I'd be looking for any kind of strange behaviour. And equally, they kept telling people, oh, there's a guy that can do brain control. And no one would believe them, in spite of the fact that we're in the MCU.
Yeah, there's aliens.
It's like...
There's the Hulk.
This isn't that
unbelievable. The bit where they're trying to stage him doing it in the tank, it's like...
It didn't make any sense to me.
Is the best way of staging this?
Not at all. And it's like, well, in what court of law is this going to stand
be permissible?
Up? We're going to electrocute him at any second.
And like she goes in, hits him, she's beating the crap out of him.
Yeah.
And at what point does he say stop and she stops and go?
It made no sense.
Mind control.
It was contrived. But yeah, he was a really, that's what these two shows have had. Two terrific villains that a lot of the movies haven't had. So maybe that's where TV's winning.
And he was undone by his love of rugby.
His love of rugby.
That was a plot point, so...
Can I read you a line from the show that I didn't particularly like?
Okay. Is it a British thing?
Yes.
Is it the guy, professor on Manchester University?
Yes.
Yes, I thought I might be.
I'm sure he's a good egg, not like those sods in Liverpool. They'll pick your pocket. We don't say things like that. We don't talk like that.
It's true, though. Those sods in Liverpool.
So should we get some Kilgrave feedback before we finish this baby? Greetings from Yorkshire. This is Luke. He says, here's my thoughts on Jessica Jones. The best thing about it is Kilgrave. David Tennant is putting in a stellar performance. He's actually making him appear as a sympathetic character, despite all the crap he's put people through. The quality of the villains is miles ahead of that in the movies. Just said that. We're on the same page, Luke. This is from Dylan Stringer, who says, I managed to watch all of Jessica Jones, The Matter of a Day, and absolutely loved the show, especially David Tennant's Kilgrave. His character was so creepy and invasive, and as a big fan of Doctor Who, it was really great to see just how different this character was from the 10th Doctor. It was also great to see how his actions affected people on a deeply personal level and how frightening his powers actually are. Even his actions when he wasn't using his powers, like when he decided to buy Jessica's childhood home, or how he managed to manipulate her into then becoming a superhero duo of sorts to keep him from killing people, were all the work of a very resourceful, sadistic villain.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I enjoyed seeing, probably the term hero and villain is a bit deficient in their relationship, but it's kind of cool to see the hero and the villain spend that much screen time together that didn't involve fighting.
Yeah.
Because, when Daredevil meets Kingpin, they're going to fight.
Yeah.
You keep them apart, whereas you could have them together, and they'd have that scene where she takes him out to be a hero, and it's kind of interesting. Just ended after that bit.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was her hanging out with her abusive ex.
Yeah.
And
that's really good.
You take the extremes out of the situation, and it's actually a real life situation. These grand gestures he's trying to do to win her back.
Poring over the past, what could have done different? Yeah, that's where it really stands out as a show.
And and that's what gives it some depth as well. That kind of you could watch it superficially as the superhero thing, or dig deeper, and it's a frightening real world tale, really. Matt Ford says, I've just finished watching Jessica Jones over 2 great days. The series was by far the most Marvel has gone out of their comfort zone with darker tones and more sexual content. However, I think they've smashed it with a superb cast and a fresh storyline. Obviously, it's only my opinion, but I do think Kilgrave is the best villain in a Marvel film series to date. What's your view?
It's really good. And again, these shows have the advantage of giving screen time to their villains, so they feel more...
Sure.
Tangible. I think, definitely. I think he's up there with Kingpin, and I still really like Loki.
Yeah, agreed. I would take those 3 as well. This from Ben Townsend, who says the most interesting and entertaining parts of the series for me was always the scenes with David Tennant as Kilgrave. I never felt quite as intrigued with Jessica herself. I think Kristen Ritter did a good job, but I would have loved to have seen a lot more flashbacks to when she was under Kilgrave's control. Apart from a couple of flashes in the first episode, the regular repeat of the bus crash and one moment at the end with her on the rooftop about to jump, we never saw anything else from that time. I also enjoyed the Malcolm story, but could have done without Jessica's lawyer-friend divorce story. So we're ending on that.
With that, the thing is, there is only a few flashbacks at the time. There's lots of discussion of it, obviously. The rape word comes up several times, and it's a trigger word for Tennant's character. It's one he really takes umbrage with.
Yeah.
So I gave you everything, if you want to call it that. It's like, yes, because that is literally what it was. Maybe that's where they drew the line. They just didn't want to depict that. They just wanted to allude to it. Sure,
and also I think the writing was good enough that you could fill in the blanks. That can spill over into exploitation if you show that. But equally, it's for you. You've got to figure out what was going on between these two to see how she's become so damaged.
You can see the consequences.
Yeah,
you fill in the gaps, like you say. So I'm going to finish on this bit of feedback. We kind of touched on it with a few points. This is Abdullah Ali from Kuwait. I've recently finished binge watching all of Jessica Jones, as I did with Daredevil, and I have to say they nailed it again. But I find it really awkward how these shows seem to exist in their own little corners of a seemingly shared universe, where there's barely any cameos of references, and if there are, incredibly subtle, as if to insinuate the crossover might never happen. It's just odd how they keep saying the Green Monster, or showing a kid as in an Avenger costume, without any reference. They never say Hulk or Iron Man. They're playing it too cute. Similarly, they keep... they say the incident, there's no explicit talk of it, because I guess they don't want to write themselves into a corner. Similarly, I can't believe Matt Murdock didn't turn up. I thought there was, given her line of work, the fact she has all these people that need representation.
Yeah.
I thought at one point they would get a public defender in.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
I want a blind public defender.
Yeah, and then it just comes right at the end with Chloe goes, I know a guy. But I quite like she just shuts it down. No.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting choice not to use Daredevil there. Yeah. Do you think we'll see Luke or Jessica in the next series of Daredevil?
I think they'll start seeding them. Yeah, I think I said it before on the show. I hope the next series of Daredevil, we know Kingpin will still have some kind of presence. Punisher has obviously been positioned as an antagonist for Daredevil. I hope they do some standalone episodes. So one just Luke, one with just Jessica. And I saw over the weekend on the Jessica Jones Twitter, they posted this little 10-second clip where you can just see from above Jessica slamming down an empty whiskey shot, and she takes a Nelson and Murdoch card. So it'd be also really cool. What if they just did a one-off special? Like a one-shot, like in the comics?
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
90
Like a
minutes.
Netflix special with just the two of them. That'd be brilliant. I'm up for that.
Do it, Marvel. Do it, Netflix.
Cool. So if you've got any more feedback on Jessica Jones, Netflix, or anything on the Superhero Show, let us know. At what address?
SuperheroShow@ign.com.
Cool. And until next week, thank you very much for watching.